Welcome back. Thank you for being here. Today we're going intimate again, as I'll be answering one of the questions that I'm asked the most when it comes to Kundalini Awakening, which is, what are my Kundalini Awakening symptoms? Now that is a very intimate question to ask. And it's also a very complex question to answer, not only because it's such a unique journey that spans and progresses over a period of time that is unique and different for everyone, but also it expresses at all the different levels of our experience. So just like any awakening, you will see it progressing everywhere. And it is a highly confusing journey oftentimes. That is inherent in every awakening journey. It is actually a key part of awakening itself. And so I find that the most important sign that you're actually having a Kundalini awakening is that either you're having a guide, someone, a master who is helping you with the Kundalini awakening and who can really support you and see where you're at, or you have this strong inner knowing that this is it. And so what I say today, I do not wish to be taken as guidance. These are just my experiences. The way that you really know if you're going through a Kundalini awakening journey or not is through your own inner knowing. And this is why we also can't look at another and say if they're going through a Kundalini awakening journey or not. It's their individual journey. Unless we can actually see the energy or feel the energy, we cannot know what it is that they're going through. So don't take these as guidelines, just enjoy the journey of me sharing what I have felt, what I've experienced, and I hope that that will be helpful to you. So I've had a rather non-traditional Kundalini journey. I knew already years before I really started noticing the physical symptoms that this is something that I'm interested in, curious about, and it would be cool to experience at some point. I did not know the implications of that. But even when the physical symptoms really got started, although I did have some guidance, I did have some validation, it was mostly an intuitive journey. So I would find random teachers online. I would get inspiration to go to YouTube and look something particular up. And as I'm wrapping up that chapter, I have learned, of course, that one of the main reasons that I had this kind of mystery journey was for me to really truly learn to trust myself, learn to trust my intuition, learn to trust my body, because the body is so incredibly wise. It knows what it needs. If it's movement it needs it, if we listen to it, if we allow it, then it will tell us that, and we can do that. If it is mantras, if it is sound that it needs, if we listen to it, if we allow that, it will come out of us, you know. So I'm all for practice. Practice is to give kind of a feeling of control, a feeling of stable ground that we can return to day after day. But I think personally that the magic happens, at least for me, outside of the practice, because that is when you get to tune into your body in real life and feel those cues and follow those cues and have meditations out. For example, I have my most profound meditations out in the forest or even out grocery shopping. And so this is how we can integrate all the teachings that we get from sitting, from meditation, out into the world to really allow ourselves to listen inwards. So the body is incredibly wise, and if we listen, it will know what we need. So let's talk about why we even have Kundalini awakening symptoms to begin with. And to understand that, let's go back to a brief recap of the anatomy of a Kundalini awakening. So along the spine, we have this sushumna channel, an energy channel, along which we have these main chakras, the energy centers along our spine. And so Kundalini, our life force, wants to move freely through this channel. And it could, but it won't, because as soon as it starts to move, anything that is in resistance in our system to life will be brought up to the surface. And so if there is a lot, which there is for all of us before Kundalini Awakening, then it would simply be completely overwhelming to the system if it would just go all the way at once. And so instead, it works kind of progressively from one chakra to the next, and then maybe back, and then maybe up again, because we need to process everything that comes up in a particular chakra, everything that is related to that, and usually also in different layers, so we come back to it again and again until we've gone to the full depth of it. And so Kundalini doesn't move all at once because we could not handle that. It has to be a progressive journey so that we learn to use this powerful energy in a beneficial way for us. And before we move any further, I also want to talk a little bit about the different layers of experience, because as I said, any awakening really expresses itself in all aspects of our being, all aspects of experience. So for me, I feel it's logical to use the yogic breakdown of the koshas. So the koshas are layers of our being in the yogic system, and it starts with the external most, or it ends with the external most, which is our body and our environment. That is kind of lumped together into one. And then underneath that, it's the energy layer, so the prana, and underneath that, there is the mind and its emotional and mental patterns. And then underneath that, we have the intuition layer or deep wisdom. Okay, so beyond that is our more essential part of self. So it's in all these external layers that we really see any awakening process happening. So, for example, in the external most layers, you may be seeing situations that are repeating, troubling situations, until you begin to resolve them emotionally within you. You may see relational patterns. Maybe there is a pattern that frustrates you that comes back from one person to the next until you resolve that within yourself. Or it can also be about natural things that the body wants to move towards or away from. The body might want to seek more natural environment, a more natural rhythm for living, especially if you're a woman, maybe to be more tuned into the cycles, but for anyone to be more tuned into nature in general. And it can also be to move away from certain foods, certain diets that are not supportive for you anymore. You might feel that that is falling off, and instead it's easy, it's natural for you to want another kind of diet. Or it can be any other thing in the body or external world that falls away or is attracted to you. And so that can all be natural, but it's also, of course, very, very good if we support ourselves in that layer and in all the other layers. So, for example, on the emotional, mental layer, of course, we want to learn how to hold our emotions so that we can process them fully, so that we can learn to let them go. And we want to learn to hold our thoughts compassionately without judgment, so that we can allow them to let go and not get stuck on the same thought patterns over and over again. And in any awakening, those patterns, whether emotional or mental, become more and more clear. It gets easier and easier to witness those patterns, so that eventually you feel ready to make a choice to move away from those into another pattern that will serve you better. And on the intuitive level, you might actually start to see your gifts develop. You might start to see that your intuition strengthens, and so you'll be better able to use your gifts in the world as you work with others. So those are just a few different ways in which you can see your journey unfold. And again, you need to be aware of all the different layers and see what's going on. And it's a day-to-day journey, really. All right, so what have been some of my most telltale Kundalini awakening symptoms? I have had a very non-linear journey. Of course, it starts at the root, but after that, it's been all over the place. And I've kind of moved through a lot of karmic lesson at a very rapid pace. And so I could see a pattern of one day or one week there would be one chakra activating and certain lessons associated with that, and another day or week there would be another one. So for example, if it's heart chakra on Monday, then it's solar plexus on Tuesday, and then it's root on Wednesday, and then it's back to heart maybe on Sunday, and then maybe the heart and the solar plexus together, or the heart and the third eye together, or any other combination. So they all are connected, and I think it's good that we honor that and we just receive. We allow ourselves to receive whatever lessons are there for us at this point in time. So to give it some structure, I will start with root, moving upwards through the chakras, and just share the most common symptoms or signs or sensations that I've had through the different chakras. So starting with the root, I've had the most classical signs: intense heat, intense pulsation, which is the most telltale thing, and tingling. And I can feel that at the tip of my spine, quite located there, but it can also spread through the genitals, through the legs, but it's always at the tip of the spine for me. And I can feel that pulsating sensation at my sacral as well. However, at the sacral, for me, something else has been almost more prominent, and that is processing, emotional processing, or just precognitive processing. So there have been a lot of karmic imprints coming up, visual memories from sexual abuse in different lifetimes, things like that, and any kind of imbalances in power, fears in this lifetime has also been connected both to the root and the sacral for me. It's also been a lot about connecting to certain consciousnesses. So with the sacral, there's been a lot of water, but also a lot of fire. Now, I know that yogis usually say that fire is connected to the solar plexus, and I've had a lot of fire in the solar plexus, but I think we shouldn't underestimate how connected they can be, and I feel that fire as well in the sacral. So the solar plexus I just mentioned, I've had a lot of sitting with fire, and I experience that as if I'm kind of visually within fire. I am fire, like that is all that I experience. And of course, that can have some deeper meanings. And I don't always feel that I have to go into deeper meanings with these experiences. Sometimes we just need to experience that as it is. But that said, it's been a lot for me about personal insecurities and about security, about building how I can feel secure in my sense of self, and what it is that I need to feel safe within my identity. And of course, identity, we can talk about that more in another video, but it's been a big chapter for me. Heart, there is a lot to say about the heart. So I do feel that pulsation, sometimes heat a lot, but one of the things that I've felt more intensely is in the actual heart. I can sometimes feel the physical form of the heart and the physical pain that is in there. And it's interesting to me because I rarely know when it's happening, whether it's about something I'm going through or something that one of my close ones are going through. So usually I have to kind of call around and see if anyone is going through some intense emotional moment, and then I'll know. And if not, then I just need to look at my life, allow my life to unfold, and then I will see if there's something happening in my life. So that has been interesting for me, because my journey has been a lot about boundaries. I have, in my Kundalini Awakening journey, I have learned that one of my strongest clairs is clairsentience. So I feel people, I feel events, I feel different kinds of things. And when you have that, then you really, really need to have very strong boundaries in all ways: energetic, emotional, mental, all kinds of boundaries. And my heart has kind of been my internal teacher for if my boundary is working or not, if it's up or not. Because if there is a friend who is going through something and I can feel them, and I can then, with that awareness, put up an energetic boundary and say, actually, I've been there for them now, and now I want to be in my own energy. And when I state the boundary around me, then I can feel that intensity, that pain move away. And so that has really been a great teacher for me. And that can happen in other chakras in other ways as well. So it's a beautiful thing to notice how you can use these sensations as your teachers. Another very telltale sign for me when my heart chakra has been activated is that my whole spine starts to undulate. When it rises to that point and the other chakras are open, then it's like the spine is finally free to dance as it never could before. It's a beautiful thing to experience. It feels very free. It feels very releasing. And I've had the experience that when it happens, it also does release more of the things that I've been holding on to, so that I can move away from that experience even more free. So that is something I cherish. And of course, at the heart chakra is also where you feel all kinds of feelings. And especially if you're working with emotions such as joy or such as unconditional love, then that is where you'll feel it. And so sometimes I just feel it like this laughter in my heart space, or sometimes I just feel it as this radiance, that unconditional love that is the gift, the essence, you know. It's not something that my mind could grasp at trying to find or figure out. It just radiates naturally from my heart space when I can allow it, when I'm open enough for it. And then we have the throat, and again, like the sacral chakra, the most telltale thing for me with the throat has been visual memories, has been working through quite tangible issues in my life, because I've always had this fear of speaking up, in particular speaking about spiritual things. And that is something that we have with us in this ancestral line, and I know it's very common. Many of us have been persecuted for our gifts, and I've been working a lot through that in order to just be able to sit here and talk about this right now. And then we have the third eye, and around there I've mostly just had the classical sensations with pulsation, with tingling, with heat, and that is the same for crown as well. But of course, when the third eye activates, that has actually been a little bit of a pain for me, because when I know the third eye is really activating again, it's always activating another karmic imprint. And so I know tomorrow will be a challenging day, but it is of course a blessing. And the more that I've just moved through all of these karmic imprints and made it to the other side of learning to be non-judgmental, compassionate with it all, the more I can really just go to bed at night and there is this silence. So this is how I know, this is how we know that there is a progression in our path, that silence where we just don't need any thoughts anymore. They don't need to be there to protect us anymore. That silence grows longer and longer and longer, and we become able to bring that with us in our day and not lose it. And so that is a precious thing that in the beginning, when there was a lot to process very intensely over a short amount of time, relatively, it felt very distant to me. Like before the Kundalini Awakening started, I felt like I had a lot of clarity, and then it started and I was just a tumbleweed in the wind, and it was very hard to gain that clarity. And sometimes I did, and then immediately sometimes something new came up. But eventually you'll run out of that. If you work with it, you'll run out of that, and you go to bed and you just feel this calm, like there's nothing you have to reach for anymore, there's nothing you have to attach to anymore, there's nothing more you have to do, because you have arrived, you're home. And so that is the real telltale sign, I would say, that the third eye really is active, that the crown really is active, that you're able to feel that home, to know that home. And that can look in many different ways. So I'm a feeler most of all, and I just know, claircognizance, I just know that things are. So I don't always see things, and it's very important to not get hooked up on an idea of what a certain chakra opening, what that would look like. For example, if we believe that it's only open if we can see things, then we might be blocking all the gifts we already have with that chakra open. So it might be feeling other people, it might be knowing things, or it might be other kinds of clairs, like hearing things, or like smelling things. So stay open to all the different kinds of information that you have personally, uniquely for you, and that will support you actually. Rather than working against yourself, you can work with yourself. All right, so that was just a very brief summary of some symptoms, and I want to be a bit honest around this and say, if you actually look on a week during a Kundalini Awakening, and mine has taken maybe 2 or 3 years, one week may be completely free of symptoms, and then another week may be completely filled of them. All right, so I actually brought a little diary excerpt from January 2021, just to give you an idea of what it can be like on a day when it's really intense. And it's really just a snapshot, so nothing more than that. So here it is. Buzzing and pressure that hardly ever stops. A mind so overwhelmed that it can hardly stay grounded within time and space, resulting in confusion, lost thoughts, and intense dizziness. Hard to breathe. Body fully healthy, yet mysteriously weak. Sudden outbursts of laughing or profound love directed at anyone or anything. Streaks of terror of facing yet another deep layer of fear. Shifting between full clarity and complete dullness. Incapability to do anything other than spontaneous meditation, resting, and reflecting. So, thankfully, it is not that intense for me anymore, but if you are on a Kundalini Awakening journey and it's really intense for you, then hang in there. You'll get through it. It will get less intense, and you will feel more of the beautiful gifts on the other side after you've worked through. So hopefully that was interesting to you, and if you have more questions, you're always welcome to ask them in the comments below. Like this video if you liked it, and thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you next time. Namaste.